Hello and welcome to International Affairs Broadcasting live from the Dhaka's Gulshan studio. Of course, I'm going to be your host, Shamsul Alam Pantho, and we are going to have a very important discussion today regarding the U.S. position on international affairs all around the globe. But before I begin the discussion, I must introduce my panelists in the studio and across Zoom. In the studio, we have Mr. Ali Ahmed, who is, of course, former member customs and of the National Board of Revenue in Bangladesh, and an economist. I welcome him onto the program today. I hope that he has been keeping well as our geopolitical correspondent for SATV situated in Washington, D.C., Norman Floyd Barnes. I welcome him also onto the program. I want to begin the discussion today with a different style. You know, yesterday and the day before, we were talking about Iran's protest and how the internet blackout has, of course, halted the flow of information from not only inside Iran but outside. But the death toll keeps going up in a very strange pattern. Western media is, even as of yesterday, the death toll was at 648 people who have claimed their lives. And of course, just about 24 hours later, the death toll number has risen to over 2,000 deaths. I want to begin with Norman Floyd Barnes, situated in Washington, D.C. It's quite a trying time, as I also know that U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is chairing a meeting of senior officials to discuss the rapidly evolving situation in Iran amid these mass demonstrations around the country. I want to understand, do you see an imminent military options coming by the United States of America? Norman Floyd Barnes.
Good morning. Greetings from Washington, D.C. The conversations right now, as I'm hearing, is that there's a preparation for a military response. What type of response, how the response, and when response is yet to be known. But right now, there's the numbers are rising. Like I said, the numbers are going up to 20, actually almost up to 2,500 reported. But there are also supposed to be some public executions scheduled for today. And the Trump administration has advised the Iranian administration that they should not do that. If they should carry on the execution, the military response is imminent. So right now we're waiting to see exactly what is going on, what the discussions are being in the back channel, and how are the neighboring countries in the region preparing for that.
It's quite an accurate observation. Thank you for bringing up the news regarding the public execution. I believe that had made headlines with some of the news articles from around the globe. I want to come into the studio. I know this issue has been dragging along, the protest has been dragging along for almost 3 weeks now. However, the international world order, the rules-based order, is being questioned by the likes of United States of America, especially as China and Russia are now calculating or recalculating their purpose, whether or not, how are they going to travelate or go forward with this 25% added tariff with any nation that does business with Iran. This is a very trying time. And I know that the Strait of Hormuz is conveniently located in Iranian waters. Any moment this oil market may crash. I want to understand how you felt about it.
Well, these are very difficult times. In 1956, when the then duly elected Iranian Prime Minister was toppled by the CIA, and the Shah of Iran was installed in his place, who continued till the Islamic Revolution in 79 unseated him. Times have never been as difficult as it is now. So I think these are very bad times. In fact, Netanyahu's very frequent visits to Washington, as if it's next door neighbor, always he tried that USA should launch an attack on Iran, and Donald Trump has been resisting to some extent, although he is not unwilling, he is very willing. Now they have got it as a godsend, this demonstration and killing and all those things. Now it's a time, I believe now, although Russia and China will not like it among the great countries. But the calculation of these superpowers, the major powers, is that if one steps in one place, the others do not go there. They only condemn from afar. And America seems to be hell bent on hitting Iran. And this time it would be a joint venture by the USA and Israel, who have been spoiling for this strike on Iran. I am afraid how long, although Iran also says that if war comes, we will also respond with war and everything. But I am afraid that the USA and Israel combined is no match, or Iran is no match for the combined forces of Israel and USA. So there is going to be a severe, why I should say severe, because they are decided on this, and now they have got a proper alibi to start a thing like this. Therefore, we will be watching soon, witnessing the gravest, one of the gravest human tragedy in Iran.
I believe that is very imminent. That
Very
is
imminent.
very upcoming.
They are now preparing, this USA and Israel, they are preparing for a situation where Iran can even use nukes. So they will be preparing for that, for defense and also offense. They will be finishing off. And there is no third power. UN nowadays, it's not UN's fault. UN cannot do anything, because when the great powers are involved, and they are personally involved and bent upon doing this, the UN is absolutely powerless. So it is up to the Americans and the Israelis. Incidentally, hitting Iran will get a very positive response from the Western world, and also from many of the third world and other countries. So Iran is going to have a very sad thing, and this is likely to lead to regime change. I am afraid this is going to be the result.
A brilliant observation from Mr. Ali Ahmed. Of course, this is not just another news cycle. This is history unfolding in real time. From December 2025 till January 2026 may well be remembered as the month that the global order began to crack. I want to come to Norman Floyd Barnes. One cannot forget the 12-day war in which Israel had wiped out the leaders of the IRGC of Iran, and that is how the 12-day war began. So this internal strike across from the Levant, I want to understand the American involvement then and also the American involvement today, in which the old ousted Shah is set to lead the nation in the absence of the regime.
Ousted Shah's son is there now.
Ousted Shah's son, Reza Pahlavi, is now same name of the father and son, but he is planning on coming into power. He is doing mass propaganda on massive media as well, that the Iranian flag is now looked upon as the sun and the rising lion. So that is the small changes, the old imperial flag that they used to use before the Islamic Revolution. I want to ask this question to Norman Floyd Barnes. This is a very trying time. You see, even with the case of Venezuela, it took 1 year of meticulous planning before they could carry out this operation on Nicolas Maduro. And then we have Iran. Of course, they got embroiled in a war of 12 days last year, and this year we are only waiting to see what decision makers are talking about, thinking about. So I want to get your take. Do you think by this weekend we shall see some major changes regarding Iran?
Thank you for that very question. That's a very difficult forecast to say. Uh, my reflection is basically we may see action before the weekend, definitely during the weekend, and more importantly, additional activity after the weekend. So right now, it appears that the target is to create a situation where the regime cannot exist in its present state. This disruption, this protest, these demonstration has come to a boiling point where the people, particularly the youth, wants change, and it's up to the current regime to respond to that. Currently, their response has been more of a military suppression of the oppression, and it is not working very well. I suspect if the United States continue to watch this situation develop, even after a intervention, a surgical strike on a certain area, it will cause, as I've spoken to some other people yesterday, a black swan situation, which meaning either or, if they go in and change or they have a surgical strike and they take out the war in fashion, it will cause a what I call a black swan situation, which means the people, because of the blackout, because of the lack of communications going on, there's no coordinated leadership. The people will respond in different ways. So right now we have chaos, but if they go in and make a surgical strike, and the heads of the military or the government is eliminated or suppressed, it will cause again widespread panic, and this situation will lead to a problem with the regime retaining its control, which will mean another problem, which will cause more problems, more riots, unless they have someone to go in to basically maintain and stand up and form a leadership. So right now we have a leadership which has been questioned by the people. Uh, there are movements towards to remove that regime, but we don't know. We don't have the information and the details. Who will come in and what is the plan after the United States get involved in this? So right now, boots on the ground is not an option, I believe, but something has to go in to calm the situation now. A attack is not going to calm the situation down. It's going to exacerbate the situation. It will cause more uprising and more problems. Without a solid plan and without communications, we will have mass chaos in the region, and the neighboring countries will have to respond to that. And that response we don't know because we don't know the details of this type of intervention. So right now, as my famous words are, we have a hot mess in the Middle East. And right
Correct.
now, the communication is going to be the biggest problem because no one knows what's going on. They say help is coming. What does that mean? Without communications, maybe there's an internal process going on. We don't know that. But right now, something is on the verge of happening in Iran and that region.
Of course, it's a very trying time. According to The Guardian, I have some information that I want to bring out. The US President Donald Trump says help is on its way, but does not mention what kind of help that the Iranian people really require. The death toll is ranging from above 2,500 to somewhere 6,000 or 12,000. Actually, the role of media is being scattered around the world. Information is not being attained
Yes.
that everyone can rely on. So once again, we could say that the death toll is a matter of question that we will find out in the coming days. However, today is the suspected day of imminent execution of Irfan Soltani, who is a 26-year-old arrested in a nearby city of Tehran before the protest internet blackout had been conducted. And of course, he is one of the many thousands of protesters that have been arrested even last week. So the Iranian authorities might once again resort to swift trials and arbitrary executions to crush and deter this dissent that they're seeing in their own country. I want to come into the studio with Mr. Ali Ahmed. You see that the protest of 3 weeks is ongoing, and if it has not gone down, it is still continuing, and Mr. Irfan Soltani, a young 26-year-old, is now scheduled to be executed. Of course, Amnesty International has highlighted his case, warning of concerns regarding that he may not be the only one. And Iran is also known as the world's most prolific executioner after China. Of course, these are the words of The Guardian, of course, a media outlet from the United States. I want to understand from you the role of media in such a trying time, how the information must be dispensed towards the international community.
We all are dependent on the media, different types, electronic and print and all those, because we cannot know anything other than media. But media misleads people in most of the cases, especially during any war, any misunderstanding. The first victim is truth. So media deals with anything other than the truth. They have their own bias, they have their own siding with people and all those things. So we cannot depend. The problem is the Iran's declaration and an avowed policy of Iran is to destroy Israel. That is the great plank that the Western countries and others, neutrals, also get, that it is not possible to absolutely destroy the country called Israel. And that is one thing that is hurting people's sentiment other than the special Iran supporters. So that is going to be one great thing. And this execution thing that you talked about, the Iranians say that they are not just revolutionary, they are not just agitators, they are the spies. They caught and they execute. But this is also not a very modern way of executing. No trial, nothing, and killing someone or chopping off his head are not a good thing to do. So this makes Iran especially unpopular in the world. So that is one problem. But the problem is the truth about the casualties is not really known. Perhaps those who print it also do not know it, or those who broadcast it also do not know it. But still, it depends on who you support. And the entire Western media and even some of the neutral countries and even some of the Arab countries, Israel is supposed to be their enemies, they are also against Iran.
Namely, one of them is Saudi Arabia.
Many of them. So very few. Only Houthis in Yemen and there's proxy
Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Yeah, that's it. There's very few people. And when the strike comes, perhaps they might be also responding. But I'm afraid if the strike comes, which now seems imminent, even Israel and all those, they may make simultaneous strikes on these proxies. And maybe USA aircraft carriers and all those, and they have their, perhaps at the beginning they may not use nuclear war, but that may come in this war. Maybe limited tactical nuclear attacks will not be the conflagration worldwide. That will not be there at the beginning, but probably it's coming.
I want to have a very small question before we can proceed to a commercial break towards you. Sir, there's adverse reactions between other nations who are doing trade and business with Iran, namely Russia and China. More on that later. But do you think that there is scope for Russia and China to intervene if there is an attack by Israel or America?
With my little knowledge of the warfare in the world and this Cold War and everything, I have observed, and perhaps it's not a new thing to me, many of the people who watch this observe, that when one superpower steps in a place very wrongly, even if it is very wrongly, the others will condemn it from before and will try from afar and will take other necessary steps. But when one of them steps in with its destructive power, others do not come here. So it's most likely that if USA strikes Iran with, of course, Israel, most probably China and China and Russia or any other power will not physically come on the side of Iran and fight USA. That is not there. Though they will be condemning and taking advantage of other things. So that is why it's going to be Israel and USA and Iran versus Iran. So this is a very unequal fight if it happens. I only pray it doesn't take place, but perhaps these prayers will never reach Donald Trump's hearts.
I really hope it does, and a good sense prevails between the leaders of the United States of America, because the last 14 or so days, America's foreign policy has been shaken by the decision making of US President Donald Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a short commercial break, but after the break, we shall be breaking down worldwide news segments. Do stay with us.
সারা দেশে লাখো মানুষের কঠোর কর্মতৎপরতা ও নিষ্ঠায় এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন 16 কোটি মানুষের হাতের নাগালে। দীর্ঘ ৩০ বছর ধরে বিশ্বস্ততা ও দ্রুততার সাথে সেবা দেওয়ায় গ্রাহক সেবায় এখন শীর্ষে। বাংলাদেশে গ্রাহক সেবার সাফল্যের পর এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন বিশ্ব বাণিজ্য কেন্দ্র সিঙ্গাপুরে। আপনার যে কোনো পণ্য সিঙ্গাপুর থেকে বাংলাদেশে বুকিংয়ের জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন। এসএ পরিবহন প্রাইভেট লিমিটেড, লজিস্টিক্স পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, 22 রবার্টস লেন, সিঙ্গাপুর 218302। ফোন 0065 629 24900। বাংলাদেশ থেকে সিঙ্গাপুরে পণ্য বুকিংয়ের জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন ঢাকা সহ দেশের যে কোনো ৮০টি শাখা কেন্দ্রে। এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, আপনার সেবা সব সময়।
Welcome, Grand Palace Hotel, Dhaka. A majestic lobby blending timeless elegance with modern design. Experience 5-star comfort in suites and
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back on International Affairs. Of course, today I'm joined by Mr. Ali Ahmed in the studio, while we have Norman Floyd Barnes in Washington, D.C. I want to bring the topic of discussion to Norman Floyd Barnes. I want to understand the adverse reactions of Donald Trump's remarks that any nation that would be dealing or trading with Iran would to face another additional 25% tariff. Of course, in a statement, the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said that Western sanctions on Iran is defined under being illegal, hindering the country's development and creating economic and social problems primarily affecting the ordinary Iranian citizens, the same Iranian citizens that Donald Trump is saying that he would support. I want to understand from Norman Floyd Barnes the Russian reaction, given that Russia and the United States are in a very precarious time. They're both fighting over the Arctic. Who shall be in control of the Arctic? But coming back to the discussion that it said it is illegal, and of course it rejects attempts to blackmail Iran's partners in this amid 25% tariff plan. I want to understand, Norman Floyd Barnes, do you think the courts in the United States of America are in line with this decision of U.S. President Donald Trump?
Thank you for the question. My response is that the courts are not in line with this, because the reason that anytime the U.S. imposes tariffs on a foreign country that sells or provides products and services to the United States, the public of the United States suffers. So this will be another situation where these tariffs will serve as a blowback to the consumers in the United States. So basically that means the price of everything that comes in from these countries that we utilize every day will increase. We are in a economic situation where people are now struggling in the current situation to buy and maintain goods and services and the basic needs for everyday survival. So right now it's very tough. This tariff brings on additional pain and suffering for the American people.
Of course, it's a very important time to analyze, to understand where United States lies in world geopolitics. But I was talking about the Russian aspect. I want to come into the studio with the Chinese aspect as well with Mr. Ali Ahmed. On Tuesday, China said they would firmly protect its interest in the wake of U.S. President Donald Trump's order of 25% tariff on all and any country doing business with Iran. So the nations in the geopolitical hierarchy, China and of course Russia, are stepping out as they have huge understanding with the nation of Iran, and of course retaliation or retaliatory stance with the United States of America. As an economist, how do you see 2026? Do you think it's starting to go into rough waters? Do you think it's going to be a trying time in the coming days? Inflation, I know, is already on the rise with the 3.6 trillion national debt of the United States. I want to get an aspect from an economist perspective.
Well, as you know, Donald Trump has not understood ever. The US Supreme Court has said this additional tariff, they call it taxes, it is import duty imposed on people on various occasions is counterproductive, because that enhances the increase of imported goods, the consumers of which are in the country. So there is inflation and the people suffer and price rise level goes up. But the problem with the exporting country, like in this case, if it is imposed as he has declared, Russia will not be affected, because Russia has very little business with the USA. So Russia will be doing whatever it does. But China has a large business as the America between these two. So if it is imposed, which they have declared it will, so China's imports will be hampered, that will be halted, but after this notification is published. But then it will cause sufferings to China in the form of lessening of the exports to USA, but in USA it will cause shortage of goods and enhancement of prices, leading to inflation and suffering of the people. So this is counterproductive also. But at the short term, it doesn't have anything, because he has just said, and things on way will not be affected. But by the time this reaches the shores of the US ports, this will be effective. And so Chinese goods will be cleared maybe at a higher rate and charging higher prices inwardly in America, as I said, it causing inflation and sufferings of the people, and China will suffer in the sense of less exports. But I believe it's not going to be a very long term thing. After this war is over, this may be taken care of, but for the time being, this is a weapon in the hands of Donald Trump. But this weapon cuts both ways. It's a two-edged sword. It cuts domestically his economy and his consumers, the US citizens, and externally the exporters, in this particular case China. So it's not a very wise policy.
Of course, at this moment, China and of course Russia do not meet eye to eye on with the United States, with a multiple array of issues, not only with when it is supporting an adversary such as Iran. I want to come to Norman Floyd Burns. I know that there is an important event happening in Switzerland. Of course, is Davos 2026, happening from January 19 to 23, and this year around it will be bringing heads of state and government, CEOs, business leaders, civil society representatives and academics. And the theme of this year is a spirit of dialogue. It matters because it will talk about global leadership under one roof, even as well as geopolitics when it comes to economy. And your president, US President Donald Trump, is said to be coming to this very meeting. Of course, it will be talking about the likes on innovation and AI governance, climate and sustainability, youth and future vision. It is quite a popular time for the year and of course for this very meeting, but it is where global crossroads of economics, politics, technology and societal intersect. I want to understand how you felt about it, given the fact that almost two nations have been actually not even more than two, including Greenland, Venezuela, Iran, Greenland, all of these territories are now a matter of global discussion. I want to understand how you felt. Do you think these elements shall be discussed in the upcoming Davos meet set to begin January 19th?
My gut instinct is that the United States will opt out of this meeting because of the impending and current situation. I think the world will be too involved in other matters, and this optional meeting will serve no purpose, particularly after the backlash of these impending events that comes up.
Thanking Norman Floyd Burns for his remark regarding Davos and of course the economic plight of multiple nations. But let's have a change of topic. Let's look at the Russia-Ukraine war. I believe due to the narratives and the discussions coming out of Washington, D.C., people have forgotten, if not that Russia and Ukraine were fighting, because the mainstream media was too busy focusing on Venezuela, Iran, and likewise situations. I want to begin by saying that just very recently a Russian Oreshnik missile had attacked the city of Lviv, which is very close to Poland, and amidst this internal rifts between the fact of Greenland, a territory that even common Greenlanders say that they are with Denmark in this case, and Denmark is a NATO member, and NATO was set to rise or increase their spending of military arms by every nation by 5%. But now American ambition towards Greenland is causing a rift. And of course, I want to understand how Mr. Ali Ahmed feels about this issue, because Russia-Ukraine war has been the longest standing war in the last decade.
Yes, this is very complicated or very simple. It depends on how you look at it. Trying to grab a country almost, the Greenland, from their self, it is semi-independent under Russian, under Danish tutelage. It is becoming for any gentleman country, and they are additionally members of NATO. And other NATO countries have said that if America comes, we will side with Denmark. But Donald Trump, being what he is, perhaps is going to heed very little of what the others say. He might, I say might, but then there is going to be, as you know, he might try to grab it, land grabbing as they call it. But they are trying to have a sham discussion with some Greenlandish Prime Minister and others, maybe others, senior officials and ministers. This is a sort of a show. I am not sure if Donald Trump's other people, his Vice President and Secretary of State and all that, if they also want this grabbing. But they are all of the same mold. Perhaps there is no differences in their policy decisions. And Donald Trump, after all, is the only person who now rules America. Even Congress itself, with all its powers, is now useless for the time being. But then Congress's lashing is coming out in about, say, 15-20 months, days, or in a month's time. Donald Trump might even be impeached. Probably his impeachment resolution has been introduced. So he is also going to have a very tough time.
Of course, the midterm elections are set to
and
the end of the year.
election is perhaps going to be a very bad thing. But then again, if you have listened to many things, these Republicans, they are not the Republicans of the 80s or 90s. These Republicans are very, very extremist. They are like Donald Trump themselves, some of them. But still, the good thinking Republicans might be voting against him. Therefore, in the midterm perhaps, Donald Trump is going to have a crash of the Republican Party in the different state elections, in the midterms. So that is going to be bad. But meanwhile, if he declares war on this Iran, or if he goes for the land grabbing in Iceland, so nobody can, Greenland, sorry, nobody can stop him. So the damage is being done and will continue to be done till he is incarcerated, which is also likely, I tell you. He might be sent to jail, but that takes time. And that is why he is all the more heroic now, doing all these things, thinking that the world opinion and the internal opinion of USA will be diverted to him. But perhaps that is not going to be the case, although a little belated. Donald Trump is also going to have his bad days.
Of course.
But maybe after the destruction of Iran and grabbing of Greenland.
Of course, that's a very outstanding observation. I want to also add on here, before I ask a question to Norman Floyd Barnes, the United States administration has moved away from almost 66 United Nations conventions or societies, which also signals a move away from international law, international world order. I want to definitely ask Norman Floyd Barnes, as you were hearing Ali Ahmed in the studio, there are real world implications of Donald Trump's decision making, and that is definitely coming out of various instances. We've seen a very recent shooting of a woman in Minnesota, which has caused protest and of course dissatisfaction between United States citizens, who have of course voiced out their concerns.
Mass resignations of the forces.
Of course, mass resignations as well. I want to get the vibes from Norman Floyd Barnes. I know that you have categorically said this is a hot mess, and I want to understand when this mess shall recover, when shall the United States focus back onto the goal of making America great again. I want to understand from Norman Floyd Barnes.
Thank you again for that question. But honestly, I have no answer. The hot mess will continue to boil over, become worse. Uh, we have a midterm coming up. We know about that. The president himself has stated that if there's a midterm, he believes that the Democrats will uh, move to impeach him. So, with that stated, his fears and concerns is that we not have a midterm election. And right now, constitutionally, the only way that we cannot, well, the only way we will delay or will not have a midterm is that we are in a war. So everything is building up to that situation where basically we'll be in the Middle East, we'll be in Venezuela, uh, we'll be in Greenland, Panama, Nigeria, wherever it may be. But it appears that we will be in some type uh, we're moving towards, I'm not going to say we will be, but we're moving towards the direction of some type of conflict between now and midterms to take the focus off of the internal domestic situation, the election, more towards how the America First, America Great agenda is put through what we call the new policy. The new policy would dictate what goes on domestically. If we involved in conflict, the United States has a tendency not to change or want to change leadership. They put all their supports in what America is doing. So right now we moving towards a situation where we will have a America first, all American response to these external situations that we are I would say manipulating into some type of conflict. So right now, what the world is watching, everybody's watching what is next steps going on. So right now, it appears that conflict is in our prescription.
I want to thank Norman Floyd Barnes for his participation on the program here today. Of course, due to time constraint, I think I'm no longer able to keep him connected. However, I want to come to the studio with Mr. Ali Ahmed. See, we understand U.S. power politics going on in the Iran crisis, as well as the oil and global trade. Last year, he had tariffed 70 nations, manufacturing nations, with such a tariff hike that it would be very difficult for these nations to keep on manufacturing for the United States of America. And today, we see a shift in the oil and global economy. It's teetering, and we still understand that because of these tensions between Venezuela, then we have with Iran, the oil markets seem to be shaking up. I want to understand your take, because it's quite important right now. The World Trade Organization and the bodies that control international trade are almost defunct, and it is taking a bite out of all the economies of the planet. Because of such a situation, investors are not being able to garner that confidence for their investments in any nation. So I want to understand, is this a bad time for businessmen as well?
Yeah, of course it is. Businessmen, and therefore the economies of all the world. But and since you have raised this, is a very, very interesting and lengthy issue, this trade things. You must have remarked that the Supreme Court of the USA has declared unequivocally by a majority vote that Donald Trump, or the President of the US, has no authority, no power to decide on tariff. The judgment is given. It will be coming out soon in the printed form, and then these tariff things will be taken care of. But it takes time. Harm is being done meanwhile, but it will not be there finally. Donald Trump, or the President of the US, has no power. I have been saying this before, but the Supreme Court of the USA has said it, and it will come very soon out. It is there. So before that, Donald Trump is going with his 25% and 50%. He doesn't have this authority. So that is one thing. But meanwhile, the world is suffering. USA is suffering, but he doesn't believe. He thinks USA is at the topmost position in his time. That is not true. Statistics do not say that. So this is going, but the problem is the damage has been done. And if this war comes, which we are all afraid it will, I only wish it didn't, then of course there will be another severe topsy-turvy, as you have hinted before, or you have said before. that when the war comes, Strait of Hormuz is going to be closed. And then there would be severe problem with oil supply. And oil, as you know, is at the root of all manufacturing and everything. So there is going to be a severe rise in oil price and a severe constraint in production in the worldwide. Going to be a severe problem in the economies of the world. So I am afraid the poorer countries will suffer more because they have very little cushion to live with. So I am afraid that this, though the war is far away from us, but in the present world, no war is far away. It affects everyone. So we are also going to be, Bangladesh is going to be affected this way or that way with enhanced prices of oil and every other thing.
A brilliant observation delivered by Mr. Ali Ahmed in the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, we must go for a short commercial break, but after the break we shall discuss how it affects Bangladesh as a whole. Do stay with us.
Sophisticated fine dining restaurant, crystal clear swimming pool for ultimate relaxation, modern gym and serene spa for well-being, perfect venue for corporate events, weddings and parties. Seamless and secured, elegant and eye-catching design. Indulge, relax, discover the first 5-star chain hotels in Bangladesh. Grand Palace Hotel Dhaka, 22 Kakrail, Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Welcome to Grand Club at Mirpur 10 Dhaka. Elegant spa and wellness facility for ladies and gents.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back on International Affairs, broadcasting from Dhaka's Gulshan studio. Of course, we had Norman Floyd Barnes joining us from Washington, D.C., and also now we have Mr. Ali Ahmed in the studio. I want the last segment to focus more on the Middle East because it is important. We've seen the plight of almost over 75,000 Palestinians who've been wiped out by Benjamin Netanyahu's leadership of Israel and the idea of the Israeli Defense Forces. However, no one stands up to him to say that he is a genocidal criminal. You can call him a dictator, but that would fall very short of what he has done with the people of Palestine. He has restricted them with aid during the month of Ramadan. Just very small segments I'm pulling out over the last 1 year of how his crimes have been very heinous, and the very fact that he remains very close ties with US President Donald Trump, even after knowing that he is a genocidal leader. I want to get your take regarding the Palestinians, because even in this very cold season, people are losing lives due to hypothermia, a very natural cause of circumstances that the Israelis have created for the Palestinians.
Well, whether you like it or not, and how much you might be fretting over this injustice, the world is governed by one or the other of the superpowers, and all of them together, they control the rest of us. And this veto power in the US, when it was created, they kept it as their tool. Any one of the 5 countries having veto power can stop any movement by the USA. So therefore it is dysfunctional, but still, if it is there, so there are some discussion forums. Had it not been there, we would not be able to even discuss it here. So it is there, useless though it is, but discussion is also of some use. So you cannot expect any good movement towards peace. The Gaza we talked about, there has been a ceasefire, and you see on the TV and other media that after the ceasefire, people are being killed occasionally, and children are being killed, and women are being killed. Everyone is being killed. Their target is the genocide they have committed, and it's being looked into. but they are increasing. Their target is to eliminate, if possible, altogether, or at least make the Gazans the minority in future Israel, if it comes at all. But we believe there might be some division. But why doesn't it come? Because one great power, USA, can obstruct everything. Other Western nations coming after them have now agreed, and they have also recognized the Palestine as a state, but they cannot do anything unless USA does it, and USA doesn't do it. Especially these Donald Trump and the president before him, Joe Biden, they are equally criminal. Joe Biden was more polite, soft, but criminal activity was there. The capital of Israel
Tel Aviv.
shifted to, no, not Tel Aviv is there, but shifted to West Jerusalem. The president, the then president Joe Biden sent his vice president, and he stood there while it was being shifted, and it is formally there now. So they are called they are Christians, but they are not the Christian of the normal type. They are pro-Israeli Christians, and they act in support of Israel in anything. Fortunately, some voices like Tucker Carlson and others who were previously with the Israelis have now come up very greatly. I watched one interview.
Even Piers Morgan as well.
Yeah, they all have come. Tucker Carlson's, he went to Israel and he arranged an interview with a Christian lady. He's not just a Christian, she's a, what the ladies are called. She's very advanced in the hierarchy of, and it was a long interview. I listened to the whole thing. Tucker was astonished and surprised and shocked that these Israelis are killing and driving away not just the Palestinian Muslims, but they are equally harsh about the Palestinian Christians. And these are coming on the main media, because media in the sense that not the mainstream. But Tucker Carlson is very widely listened to, and even Donald Trump and Netanyahu, I have heard Netanyahu saying and Donald Trump saying that they are very worried about this Tucker Carlson. I am afraid he might also be killed. He was a very severe pro-Netanyahu and all that. Now he is bringing out all the defects, and it is seen that this genocidal force in Israel, and with the help and assistance of this Christian of USA and elsewhere, are killing and driving away Christians in Palestine. So I think they will not like it when they hear these things. So it is time that these people understand the truth. And people like Carlson, I try to read him, but then he doesn't have any books published, some articles. These interviews, if you listen to it, very interesting and eye-opening. Nobody has gone to this, going to Israel and taking interview of Christian missionaries and others, and they are educated people, and they are saying how they harm the Christian Palestinians, and they kill babies. And Tucker Carlson, he asked the lady, why these young children, why are they killing? He said, because they are Palestinians. So they want to eliminate Palestinians altogether.
Ethnic cleansing to the max.
And that does not spare the Christian Palestinians, whose brothers and sisters in America are helping these not the Judaic, they are
Zionist people.
Zionist.
The
Zionist.
Yes.
Donald Trump is one, the one before him is one. The Zionist Christians, and there are long religious interpretation. I can touch a little, but it's not the time. The Zionist Christians are as good as the Jews, the Zionist Jews. Judaism is not bad because they're
right, but as you were saying, the aggression towards Palestinians is very obvious here, regardless of religion, as I make it, as you were saying.
Yeah, that is very interesting. That is why I said, watch this gentleman. He is very he was deadly against Palestine, and for the Israelis. I was, while listening to him, I have been listening to him for some time, it reminded me of Hazrat Omar, who was a great anti-Islamic person, and when he converted to Islam, he became the great fighter for Islam. Now, almost like this, it is a verbal fight though, but he is doing lot of things. You must listen to him.
Accurate. I must thank Mr. Ali Ahmed for his observations regarding Israel, and also I must thank him for his valuable insight and contributions to international affairs on this very stage. I must also extend my heartfelt thanks to Norman Floyd Barnes for being here earlier on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, as I draw a closure, today is 14th of January, which is important in history. In 2011, Tunisian President Zine Al Abidine Ben Ali stepped down following mass protest against poverty, unemployment and political repression. The uprising in Tunisia became known as the Jasmine Revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. I shall catch you all on tomorrow's program. Thank you for being on International Affairs.